Welcome to another Mars Fire Forge knife review. Today I've got two of these Ospreys here. One's going out, one I made for myself, and yet again this is going to someone in the Army Rangers. So this is the second time an Army Ranger has opted for one of these Ospreys, and before I send it out, I'm just going to give it a quick review so we can see what seems to make them so attractive and really why I like them so much myself. So here's the original design Osprey with this rounded back. Here is a Bowie knife version that I made for myself. Let's do a little performance in the woods, and then we'll come back and talk about them a little bit. One of the really important things a knife like this has to do is take a wet log like this and turn it into a nice, bright, warming fire. Let me show you how this knife is very capable of easily processing something like this and turning it into something like a fire that can warm you or heat your food. So you get that life-saving fire with just a wet log and your Osprey knife here. And of course, a little striker. Now there may come a time when your knife is called upon to cut some less than ideal material, something that's not wood, something that's actually metal, like this steel can. And you need to make sure you've got a knife that's up to the challenge to do that. With a nice, long cut. Being very careful not to cut myself when I do this. Sliding this through, and we could just cut this whole steel can in half if we needed to. Boiling water, if we had to make an improvised water boiling unit of some kind, or opening cans of rations or something like that. See, the edge is just fine, doesn't hurt it. Of course it does dull it a small amount, but we're still able to do these fine tasks like we needed to do before. It still bites in, still sharp, and in fact, as you'll see here, this is still going to be able to even do a little shaving on the arm where it penetrated through. So, you know, our edges is really not in trouble. So, a little bit of a harder use test there. Not crazy, but you want a knife that's able to do something like that and the fine work of bushcraft. Now I want to show you something super special about these knives, the convex grind. Let me show you a little bit where the edge is dull. See the glint there from going through the metal? Just a bit. We're going to get this sharp with just a stone. It's easy to do this, excuse that, with a convex knife, because all you do is just roll your knife on the stone or roll the stone on your knife. Back and forth like this. Now you wouldn't be able to get a normal knife sharp like this because the grind is too precise and the stone isn't totally flat, so it wouldn't be hitting it rightly. It could be difficult to sharpen up. But with this high carbon steel, nicely tempered, it's very easy to get back to a very sharp blade just with something like a river stone. Last thing you can do, since these sheaths are covered in leather, you can just drop it right there on the sheath. This is going to be that final step that's needed to get this knife pretty much razor sharp again, and I'll show you at the end here. Maybe a few strops on the belt as well. If you have a leather belt, it's always a good option. And so with nothing but a rock off the ground, this knife, and my belt, this knife is, you know, hair shaving sharp again on the cutting edge. Very easy to maintain these in the field, and they're tough. I've taken this recipe of steel with the convex grind and batoned it through bricks before. I've got a video showing it. And what happens is, sure, the edge gets chewed up a little bit, but it doesn't chip out. And it's actually very easy to resharpen because the damage is just so minimal because of that convex grind and the heat treating. All right, with that little demonstration, then let's look at what makes these knives so nice. They've got a pretty short blade, a little less than 4 inches, but it's wide and it's stout. And really, this is the profile of knife that I'm noticing is pretty popular in the military these days. It's not really the big 7-inch blade K-bar anymore. It's kind of these small, capable, tough knives, at least I see that the servicemen are interested in using. Why is that? Well, because they're capable of a lot. These wide blades cut very, very well because of the width, but they're also extremely durable. So you can ram these into car doors if you need to, and pry with them if you need to. And they cut very well for a long time, specifically mine, because of that convex edge. The way the steel tapers from thick to thin here is convex. That allows the edge to stay sharp, not take as much damage, doesn't chip away. And when it does get dull, it continues to cut really well to where a lot of times people don't realize it's dull. I've got guys tell me they've gone through 2 deer with my knives without sharpening them. They say they're not dull. Well, they also say that they haven't sharpened them in a year and whatnot. I know the knives must be dull, but it's just the edge geometry is so good that they can keep cutting with a dull knife and not really realize it's dull. And that's a big secret. Having a knife be able to cut well, even when you've lost your initial edge. But as you saw, these edges are easy to restore in the field, again, because of that convex grind. It's a rounded surface here, so you don't need a completely flat surface to sharpen it on. You can use a rounded stone, you can use a broken piece of porcelain if you find it. You can use just about anything, and because it's that nice carbon steel, it takes an edge very nicely, very easily, and holds it well. The edges of all these knives are hardened while the spines are softened, giving them an extra degree of durability, especially when it comes to batoning, slamming on the tips of these knives with a piece of wood. I've never, ever had any problem with that whatsoever, and I batoned through some pretty hard stuff with these knives. So you've got the nice wide blade in the original format here. I've got some serrations nicely put in there. Not jagged serrations that tear and rip, but these kind of nice rounded serrations that really just increase the cutting surface area, and they work very well. Notice the nice taper. It's a bit dirty now from batoning, but notice the nice taper that happens in this blade going from thick to thin. That allows you to cut really well out towards the tip, which you need. Well, if you're using just the tip of this knife, you know, your finger on the back, going through leather, cutting through clothing, cutting through clothing to get to a wound, or cutting down to get out a splinter, or skinning an animal, you don't want a big, thick tip that's just rolling off things. You need something that's fine and precise, yet durable, and that's what this is. Very fine and precise, but because of this profile, because there's a lot of meat this way, even if not this way, this is a super durable tip that you will not snap off. So that's the nice little advantage of this sort of profile, with the back kind of slowly coming down and the edge slowly coming up. You get a really durable yet fine tip. It's able to do a lot of precise work. And you get to maintain the wide profile, which is what you want, because the wider the knife, if it's ground well, the better off it's going to cut. You've got the swell for both of them here for the choil region, and then thumb ramped right here. And that just lets you get a great non-slipping grip. You can even put your finger there or there if you want to, press cutting, and you'll find different ways to use that feature when you have it, but it feels very good. And this centers the handle in the middle of the blade. You know, normally the blade is coming straight from the spine of the handle, and so the blade's a little bit below the handle. Well, with this design, the handle is right in the center of the blade. See that? And that just feels good and it feels natural. But we've got that natural curve, which you really want when you're doing long cutting and when you're trying to get leverage. That curve feels good in the hand, and it helps with the ergonomics immensely. So some jimping there. This one's got a little bit more decorative, as you can see, with some spacers. This one's a bit more plain. And we've got our G10 handles, very resistant to any sort of corrosion or anything like that. They don't chip out, they don't break easily like wood. And I've got this nice pattern filed in there, which looks attractive to the eye, but also that really ramps up the retention of these. They're not slippy. You know, you hold it in your hand, you know the edge orientation, you feel good about it, and you feel good about it not slipping out. And then a little extra jimping here towards the end if you were to do some sort of a chopping motion, you know, choking back on it and chopping a little bit, it's not going to fly out. In fact, a little modification I have for this one, this just extends the hand a little bit. So if I'm just doing some minor chopping, you know, to taper a spike or a steak or something like that, I can grab onto that with 2 fingers, grab here, and I can still get some decent chopping just with this small knife. These weigh less than 7 ounces. They're about 6.5 ounces. Notice the full distal taper in each. Thinner, thicker, thinner towards the tip. And again, this one is in a Bowie configuration. I made that for myself, and this is the original configuration here. The tangs are nice and solid throughout the back. You can hammer with those if you'd like, no problem. And really just a very comfortable, portable system overall. These are great for everyday tasks. They're not big and bulky and hard to get out, getting caught and stuff. They're slim. And if it comes to a really close, terrible knockdown, drag out fight, these are fast. They cut deep. They can penetrate, all the way up to your hand, and they don't come out of your hand. Once you're grabbing onto this, this becomes functionally your claw, and you're not going to lose it forward or reverse grip. It stays in your hand. So these are equally suited for everyday tasks, harder, heavy-duty tasks, or if needs be, a life or death situation, a knockdown, drag-out fight. So there are the 2 tools here, the Ospreys from Mars Fire Forge. Right now they go for $375 a piece. That's with the sheath that comes with them, and I'll cover that right now. I love these sheaths because they're kydex. They've got that nice snap retention of kydex, never ever shaking loose, but they're covered in leather. That makes them a little bit quieter, that makes them feel better, certainly makes them look better, and it also allows you to do a little stropping on them. And I think it's just a great addition to the kydex. Now, how does this work? Well, you've got grommets all throughout here. So you could remove these Chicago screws. You could do paracord through there. You could put a tech lock on there. These eyelets allow you to mount it to whatever you want to, LBE, anything like that. So you've got that option, but it comes with these 2 beeswax hardened straps. And why I like this is because this mounts sideways on the belt. And this is my favorite way to carry a knife because it's very comfortable and very accessible. And I get it there. Very comfortable, very accessible. When you're sitting, it goes out, you do your cut, goes back in. If you want to conceal, then boom, it goes away and it's gone and it's back. You can take this and you could mount it to Molly, something like this. Fit these through and around and strap like that. And now it's mounted to your Molly. Can go on this strap here. It just makes it very versatile. And again, you don't need to take those on. You can leave them off if you'd like. If you want to mount it like this to something, then use the eyelets to do that. But this is the format it comes in, and it works really well for me. And I've heard feedback in the field that it works really well in that way. So there's a closer look how that functions of the sheath. Well guys, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the little bit of demonstration, the little bit of exclamation of these Marsfire Ospreys. Again, comes in a Bowie knife for the original configuration. Let me know if you'd like them. You can tell me on marsfireforge.com. You can email me at marsfireforge@gmail.com. Check out my Instagram as well. And if you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate you to subscribe, share it with someone else who likes it. Have any questions about the knives, let me know. Go ahead through the playlist and check out some of my other videos as well. Gives you more information on these knives. And I appreciate you watching. Thanks, guys.